Secure your tinfoil hats, buckle down tight, and hold on loosely as we soar over the rocky tops of the La Platas on a rocky mountain high, get sucked into the vortex of the Four Corners, and settle down snugly at mile marker 420 in colorful Colorado. It is Sunday, June 13th, Monday, June 14th for those of you across the pond and beyond. Welcome to We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. I'm so glad you guys could join us this evening. I'm your host, TessaTNT, and I hope you guys had an awesome weekend so far. Things have really been heating up. Man, when I was in the field working this week, planting plants in the field, there was actually heat waves. It went from spring weather to very crazy hot, like crazy summer weather in just 1 week. It was insane. But I hope you guys are keeping cool and enjoying yourselves. Make sure you grab yourself a drink, a snack, and, settle down, because we're going to have a very good evening this evening. So if you're listening right now, you're listening live on Spreaker.com. You can also find us live at KPNL Radio, which you can find at kpnl-db.com. Tonight, I have a treat for all my guys and gals out there. Tonight, we will be talking to and getting to know Mr. Ben Stephenson. And Ben Stephenson founded Central Utah Paranormal in July of 2019. He started investigating as a hobby in 2017, and what started as a hobby became a true passion in 2018. They investigate historical sites, cemeteries, and homes. He was invited to be a speaker at San Diego Paracon. Sadly, due to COVID-19, the event was canceled and they had to reschedule it. Currently putting together presentations to help others understand the paranormal, how to properly communicate and share their evidence. They also are still open for home investigations, and they hope to see you all on their social media. And there's so many different places that you can find them. Ben, can you tell them some of the places that they can find your group?
Yes, we are just about everywhere on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. We're under central.utah.paranormal. And on Twitter, we are CU Paranormal 1.
That's awesome. So what made you decide to get into the paranormal?
I guess it was a lot of factors. I think most of us that get into it had a lot of experiences when we were young or growing up, things that we didn't really understand until we started to question them as we got older. But I ran into more and more stuff throughout my teenage years, and really always wanted to do this, but at the time, not that I was worried about my image. It's like I wasn't popular in high school or anything.
Right, me neither.
But living in Utah, really like in a very religious community of various religions. A lot of people think most of us are just Mormon, but we have a good little melting pot of beliefs where I'm from. But I think a lot of it was the reason why I didn't start when I was younger,
crazy?
At least.
Like all the judgment and ridicule that you get from even family members when it comes to the paranormal. It's insane.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like my parents and my family are supportive, but they're like they don't want to be involved in it, but they're totally cool with supporting it and like keeping my magnets and passing them out to people and like stuff like that. But they don't want to come on an investigation by any means.
Well, it's cool that they support you though. So did you grow up religious? Is your family religious at all, or?
Yeah, grew up very religious in a religious community. I would say my beliefs are still fairly along those lines as well.
Mm-hmm. It was funny, growing up, I lost my mom at a very early age to a drunk driver, and so you're looking for answers, and as a kid, at the age of 5, almost 6, I was looking towards religion, and I don't know how many different churches I went to, but my dad took it pretty hard, so we moved in with our aunt and uncle, who now my aunt, she adopted me, so now she's my mom, and she's been, a blessing in my life. But yeah, I grew up LDS, and I'm a Jack Mormon at this point, but I do like, I don't know, I do believe that they have a lot of good things going on, but I find myself more in the spiritual realm. You know, I love my big brother Jesus, and look up to him and try to, live my life according to, treat others as you would want to be treated, and have kindness to creatures big and small, and whatnot. Do the best you can. But helping people, like as far as doing paranormal, on this side and the next, because there are souls that are stuck over there. Can you tell us about your first paranormal experience?
Yeah, so I always try and think of different experiences that I've had, because sometimes I feel like I tell the same ones for anyone else that's heard me on any other station or podcast. But I had them when I was really young, like very vivid dreams, things that were, like so real, like you can feel, smell, touch everything in your dream. But I had one in particular that, how old was I? I would have been probably about 10 years old, and laying in bed, and I don't know if anyone else did this, but whenever I was scared as a kid, I'd cover all of me except for a part of my mouth so I could breathe when you get scared at night in your bed.
The shield of blankets. It works.
Yeah, I'm doing it right now, but you can't see me.
Right?
But so, I remember waking up and kind of just feeling eerie, something was off. And I woke up, and in the corner of my bedroom, there was I don't even really like saying a cloaked figure, but the best way I can describe it is if you've seen Cinderella, when the witch turns into the old witch. Like that. She looked like just kind of this hunched over thing with some hair sticking out.
On Snow White, right? Snow White.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, did I say Cinderella?
Yeah.
It's cool. Snow White if I didn't. So, my bad. But it wasn't it felt like it was transparent-ish, but it was just a mass. And so I assumed the position. I covered myself up all except for my face. And to me, I felt like what was something that kind of not necessarily got on top of the bed or on top of me, but kind of hovered over me. And I remember feeling what I thought was hair tickling my mouth. Ew. And I know it wasn't hair. I know it wasn't there. But that was what it felt like, and I stayed there until I woke up the next morning. But I told that story to one of my friends, someone that's actually on our team, and she was like, "Oh, you should look up the old hag." And there's this. If anyone's familiar with that, I don't know if you're familiar with that, Tessa, but
yes. Sleep paralysis is known to be
sleep paralysis
part of it.
Demon thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I looked that up, and that was exactly what it looked like. One of the first or second pictures that came up on Google when I typed it in, and I was like, "Bah, that's exactly what it like."
So creepy. And how old did you say you were again? You were 8 or 9 or something? I can't remember. I'm sorry.
I was 10. I think I was 10.
Okay.
I was probably 10 because I think I was in 5th grade.
Oh my goodness. Super creepy. Yeah, and you're like, I know it's not hair touching my face, so maybe it was ectoplasm or something. Sometimes when there's a spirit near it, or you walk through it or whatnot, you'll feel like a spider webbish sort of thing. Creepy.
Almost kind of like when you're, if you're wearing baggy clothes and they kind of suck to your legs.
Ew. So did she repeatedly visit, or was it just that one time?
That's the only one that I recall.
Interesting. So, when you first began to investigate, did you just, go visit local haunts, or where did you begin this whole paranormal investigation?
So I actually, so I'm a corrections officer, and when I first started this journey, you could say, and everyone there basically knows, like, I like the weird stuff. I loved all the ghost stories and telling people about haunted locations and like things like that. I hadn't started investigating yet. Just some little stuff that I did on my own, like when I was still kind of doing it as a hobby, kind of trying to see if I had the knack for it, I guess you could say. And this new guy moved in. His name's Randy, and he was our nurse there in the jail. And he was like, everyone's like, oh man, you should talk to Ben about all that weird stuff, because he would talk about it. And so we kind of got together, and I already had like a website built. Like I had everything ready. I was just waiting for, I guess, someone to help me before I hit the go button, if that makes sense. But so me and him started, and we started in historical locations that were not even supposedly haunted. We wanted to go and find out if we could find any activity, get any answers, get any voices, get anything on camera. And that was kind of where it all started.
So what kind of tools did you use when you first started? I keep seeing these pictures of you with dowsing rods, and oh my god. Like when I was a kid, my granny taught me how to douse with hickory sticks or applewood sticks or whatever, where you have like a little Y-shaped stick and it starts going boiling, and that's how you douse for water. But we went to Vegas one year, and I had the money, so I paid for a paranormal tour for me and my eldest daughter, who, like I told you earlier, is going to make me a grandma within the freaking year. I'm like, I'm too hot and young for this, and she's like, Mom, you can be a gilf, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So we go on this paranormal tour, and one of the things that they had were dowsing rods, and I'm like, wow, I never used copper dowsing rods. It was amazing, the energy that came through these things. Like they'd be swinging around like helicopter propellers or whatnot. When energy was really high, yes and no answers. You can, go through the alphabet to figure out names or numbers or whatnot by clicks and directional wise and everything. Like, they're amazing. What do you think about them? Are those like your main tools? That was my first tool in my paranormal kit.
So those became one of my main tools. When we first started, all we had were a couple cameras, and we didn't even have night vision yet, so I had to use one of those red lights so like you could still see, but it didn't impede your vision, kind of thing. And motion lights that I picked up at Walmart for like $5 for 3 of them.
So if something walked by or something moved, they'd come on, or?
Yeah. So if any movement went past them, they'd turn on. And Randy bought a PSB 11, and that was our first spirit box. And we got like verbatim like words, names in our very first time. And like it was such a high for both of us. But I remember when we were driving home, I was like, just remember, man, I was like we really lucked out here. It doesn't mean this is going to happen every single time, And that's one thing I've really enjoyed doing too, because I get tired of people that go around and just fake stuff for YouTube or to get views. Like, we're a free service. We don't get paid. We do everything that we do to help people and help them understand what they could be going through or what's in their home.
You're not crazy. This is really happening.
Yeah, so our main focus was definitely that. Just, we wanted to go out and see what we could find, but after that first experience, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make the plunge. I'm gonna get some dowsing rods, and I kind of went about it not necessarily prayerfully, but I feel in this field you really have to find tools that not just speak to you, but that you can use, that work for you. Like, when you are using your energy to use all of these different tools and items, I feel like they really do kind of become a part of you. and they work almost specifically for you, like a pendulum, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But I went out and got my first set of dowsing rods, and the first place we used them was actually at a World War II Japanese internment camp.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's another one of those crazy ones. It's one of those that you don't read about in the history books because the U.S. doesn't really want you to learn about it.
I know, it's so sad. Even George Takei had to be in one of those when he was a kid. The guy from Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Sulu.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane. And they try to hide that stuff, and that's where the whole, like, critical racial learning or whatever that they're trying to do, people are trying to get rid of it because they don't want people to know about this. But it's better to know from it and learn from past mistakes than to just sweep it under the rug like they've been trying to do with so many things. So I hope they keep it in there. But what did you guys find?
So this is where it gets kind of funny. So we've just gotten my dowsing rods. I had tested them out at a couple other places just to make sure that they kind of worked for me, and they did. So we get out there, and I guess for anyone that doesn't know, like brief history, the place is called Topaz. It was a Japanese internment camp during World War II. After Pearl Harbor was bombed, the U.S. government went and collected all of the Japanese Americans, whether they were born here or had immigrated here, and put them all in internment camps all over the U.S. I think there was about 10, but the one we had held like 10,000. That was here in Millard County in the middle of the desert. So, I mean, that's pretty bad. It's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
That we even did that.
Yeah.
But
to me, it's ridiculous.
But it happened. It was history.
Yeah, they did it out of fear, I think. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. And so we're out in this area, and we got to, I believe our first area where we did it was at the hospital. So at this point, the foundations are still there, but all of the buildings are gone. So now it's just a historical site out in the middle of the desert. And so we went to the hospital wing, and we learned through as much study as we could do, we found that only one person was killed there. There was people that died due to, sickness, things of that nature, but only one man was killed. They had set up these guard towers around the facility, the compound, basically is what it was. And it was a very elderly Japanese man. I wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. But he was walking past a line that they were not allowed to cross unless there was movement or at a specific time of day. And the guards were telling him, stop, come back, stop. But he didn't understand them. He didn't know what they were saying, and they shot him in the back while he was walking away from them.
Oh my gosh. An old man. Can't you just go over there and grab him by the arm or something and bring him back?
Right?
Jeez.
Yeah, and I really wish I could remember his name right now to kind of like show some respect to him in that sense. But
yes.
But so anyways, we're over at the hospital wing, which is probably where he was taken, and we felt really good about starting right there. And we began our communication session. We had all of our equipment going, and we had gotten a new camera too. So Randy got this camera all set up, and we believe we made contact with that particular man using dowsing rods. We asked, usually have to ask yes or no questions, or very specific questions that they can cross the rods for yes or leave them parallel for no.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember asking, like, did you live here? Yes. Did you want to live here? No. Were you forced here? Yes. Did you die here? Yes. Did you die of natural causes? No. And then it was like, were you, that thought kind of came into my mind. I was like, were you the one that was killed here? Were you the one that was shot while walking away? And it said yes. And we kind of dabbled with some back and forth questions, and then we decided to switch to a spirit box to see if we could get some more voices and not just the dowsing rods. And we continued to do that for another 10 or 15 minutes, and we're like, okay, we ended that session, and we were like, we need to, like, we were both kind of overwhelmed. This was the second time we had gone out, so this was a lot of energy and just a lot at once. Like, you're emotional, like you feel bad for this person that went through all of this, like through everything that they went through there. And I just remember we stopped, we took a break, and Randy was like, oh, hey, I'm gonna check the camera and make sure we got everything. And we got it all on video, but the mic was covered by a sticker.
Oh
no! So here we had this amazing experience and probably got some EVPs. And this is where our learning really started to take off, from there. Like, check your equipment, make sure you're using it right, test it before you leave. Because we got all of this almost like divine information, if you want to consider it that, and have no record of it except for the two of us that were there. And it was like, we plan on going back out there and doing it again. I'd really like to get permission from the Historical Society to camp out there and do some, like, just like a full night up and really obtain that information in a better way. Now that we have like a lot more hours into this, we know what we're doing. We have tested all of our equipment on multiple occasions, and we know what to expect. Like, sometimes you don't know what to expect. I don't want to say because sometimes you don't know. But
yeah, you can be very surprised. Yeah. Yeah, and since you guys are established now and you have a website and everything and possibly business cards, you can go in and talk to them, and like you said, they'll give you the status to go in there and stay the night. And it's amazing, like, activity doesn't just happen at night. Generally, that's the best time to do an investigation because it's generally quiet and there's not traffic and stuff going on. But any time of the day you can have paranormal activity because they're people just like you and I.
I would agree completely. That's another thing we've enjoyed showing people, is that because they're like, oh, don't you have to come to my house at like 3 o'clock at night to do this? And you're like, no, that's just Hollywood. That's just TV. Like, we can do it as early as you want or as late as you want, given our schedules. Because, like, we have careers. This doesn't pay the bills. This doesn't pay us any money. We just do this to help people and to really learn more about it and put our own efforts into the paranormal realm, you could say, to learn more, to help other researchers and investigators.
Yeah, and I've had people say, like, why don't you charge? Like, you're giving your time and your services, blah, blah, blah. But I feel like if we charged for doing a paranormal investigation or whatnot, like, we're taking advantage because there's not a lot of people out there doing this to help people, Generally, they're doing it for fun or whatnot, but, like, to actually do it respectfully. And when you guys do this, do you ever try to clear a house or cleanse it, or do you just let them know what's there?
So I've only had to, like, I've done, like, home blessings in the past, like, as part of, like, religious basis, but as a investigator, I have only had to do that in one home, and I always clear it with, well, I shouldn't say always, that was the first one that I had done as an investigator, so I cleared it with my fellow investigators that were with me, with the owner of the home and her family, because I didn't want to do anything that was outside of their own comfort level, or everyone has different beliefs, and I don't like to infringe my beliefs on other people. So I'll tell them my thoughts and what I think's going on, and if they want to agree with me, that's okay. But I still give them that option. Like, I can do this, but it's up to you. I'm not here to push you. I'm here to help you, kind of thing.
So how did you clear it? Did you use sage or Palo Santo? Did you use like holy water or oil, anointed oil, or how exactly did you do the clearing?
I used a priesthood blessing.
Okay. That's awesome. And did it work?
Yes.
That is amazing. I'm so glad that you were able to do that for them because, I mean, it can really alter people's lives and their health. It's really insane what can happen to a person.
Well, and there's still those fears, too. At least the fears that I have. And I think, honestly, it's Hollywood that's induced that fear into so many people that if you try and do certain things, that all of a sudden you're going to get attacked, or, like, the house is going to crumble and fall into the ground, or, like... There's this like irrational fear of doing a home clearing at sometimes.
Well, yeah, it's the fear of the unknown. Like, what's gonna happen? Is it gonna get worse? Because, like I said before, like some groups go in there just for shits and giggles, and they don't really do anything to help, and they just like make the activity even worse. So it's really awesome that you were able to do that. So with the other ones, you know, perhaps you guys found out that it was a family member or a friendly ghost or whatnot, so they were able to just cohabitate peacefully, or?
Generally, yeah. There is, like, so the only nasty one that I had, and that was the one that we did the blessing of, we actually have that video on our, not the blessing, I consider that something that's, like, sacred.
Yeah, private.
So I don't post anything like that.
Yeah.
But the pre-investigation up to that is on our YouTube. But what started it was a young girl was having these weird things happen in her home, and she had 2 little girls of her own, like single mom, you know, trying to do whatever she can to help her kids. And she woke up at night to her. She's probably almost 3 now, but at the time I think she was just over 2. And called out to her mom in the night, and her mom came in her room, and she was like, "What's wrong, sweetie?" And she was pointing in the corner of her room, and all she could say was, "Mom, girl, scary."
Aww.
And she was a family friend, so she called me the next day and was like, "This happened last night, like, can you come over tonight and, you know, check these things out?" And so that's what we did. And after a second investigation there, we came to the conclusion that that was what was needed, was a blessing, if that was something that she was okay with, and that's what we went forward with that night.
Yeah, it's so scary when it, you know, especially involving kids, you know, they're so innocent, and, you know, I don't know, you have to protect them, and these things...
Yeah, they're so sensitive.
Yeah, they really do prey on little ones. And I think they're so close to the veil that they are able to see these things. And I think, you know, if it's not denied. Like, when I was growing up, my mom was very open to it. She was a very spiritual individual, and she was the one that had all the paranormal experiences. My dad was the one that believed in UFOs and such. He did have one paranormal experience with my mom, but it's so important to... I'm so glad that she listened to her kids and she reached out for help from you, and that you guys were able to help her, because that is such a strange thing to go through, and it's very scary. Like, you just want to protect your kids. What can I do? How can I fight something I can't even see? So it's so awesome that you guys are doing what you do.
But I'd say I would say out of 96% of our investigations, it's friendly or a family member, and the 4% is the something nasty. That's about, because like that's another thing that I always think of, because when you see a lot of videos or a lot of investigations on YouTube, it's bad thing, demon.
Yeah, it's always a demon.
No. Like, no, it's not.
Right.
But that's another thing that we try and help people to understand that not everything is demon.
Well, yeah, people automatically think if you are physically attacked or you get scratched or something like that, it's a demon. But a lot of times it could just be a spirit trying to get attention or trying to get your attention, you know? So do you think that girl in the corner was actually a demon trying to present itself as a girl?
No, but they were starting. I say they because I honestly don't know a better word to use, because it was multiple. It was more than one in the home. But I really think it needed help, and they needed help. They wanted to leave, and they were able to reach through her child to get the help that they needed. I feel like they wanted to leave the home, but they weren't able to or didn't know how. And we even asked, like in the investigation, we asked, would you like help moving on? And it said yes with our dowsing rods. And we did it again with the pendulum. And so at that point it was like, okay, like they really do want our help, but we just still felt that there was also some bad juju there too. So it was kind of two birds with one stone kind of a situation.
So that's good. You were not only able to help them, but the spirits that were needing to be released.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting what keeps a lot of spirits here, and I think a lot of it has to do with belief systems. You know, people that have taken their own lives believe that when they do that, they're automatically going to go to hell, so they just stay here, you know. Belief and, I don't know, religion is a really hardcore thing for people. It's very ingrained. And so I could imagine that being scary for a ghost. We had one, and that's where I'm saying, like, in the day, okay, so it was about 8 o'clock in the morning, we go to this railroad station museum, and, you know, unless I stay up till 8, I generally don't get up early. But we went in there, and this ghost, through a paranormal app, which was Ghost Radar Legacy, came through, said her first and last name, Kate Johnson, Walter, intention, death, sharp tool, so on and so forth. And we set this up in the car, the train car that's in the museum, and went around the rest of the museum and set up our other equipment. And when we came back, we found this. So it was amazing. They'd been calling this ghost Emmy, which there is a little girl ghost there named Emmy. But this lady's name was Kate. And she was Catholic. She had taken her own life because she was a soiled dove. She fell in love with a firefighter. He took her on the car to elope. They were going to elope and go get married, and they were found together by the brakeman, Walter, and a fight ensued, and he killed her fiance. So she felt responsible. Like, had she not been there, that wouldn't have happened to him. So her madam took really good care of her, gave her money, sent her to California to try to move on with her life, and she just couldn't. So she ingested, I want to say muriatic acid, but it could have been something else, some other kind of acid. But she took her own life, and then she was stuck on this train car, which I think to her was her purgatory. This is where her downfall began, was on that train car. So she was stuck on there, and of all the things that released her, this Catholic school class comes in, and Jeff, the museum curator, was like, he said, I wasn't going to tell them the whole story, but then, you know, I felt like I needed to, and he told them what exactly happened. And then he was walking off the cart, and when you're walking on a cart, it goes back and forth. So he thought the class was following him, and he gets down the stairs, and he said they started saying this prayer of release from purgatory. And he said he had grown up Catholic. He had never heard this prayer, and I've heard other Catholics tell me that does not exist. But they were saying a prayer of release from purgatory. And she was gone for about 3 months, and then she came back due to free will and free agency to come back and help little Emmy, because the brakeman was totally harassing her and causing issues for her, and so she came back to protect her. So we're trying to find out what Emmy's story is, why she's stuck there, so that way they can both, you know, be free to go to the light or to heaven or wherever you go in the afterlife. It's pretty amazing.
I've never heard of that either.
Yeah. Kids in a school class did this. They released her spirit. It was so awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So did any of your other family members have any sort of hauntings or visitations or anything like that?
My grandma actually shared one with me actually just like a month ago, and I had never ever heard the story, so it was actually kind of cool. But I think um, my mom and my sibling are kind of like more turned off to it, so I don't think they would really notice. I think my dad would, but he's never shared one with me that he's experienced himself. But the only one I know of in my family is the one my grandma had.
Could you share that with us? I love hearing people's stories.
Yeah. So it's kind of a sad story, but so when my grandma was very young, she actually still lives in the home that that she grew up in. After she got married, her mother passed away at a very young age, and her and my grandpa purchased the home, and more to take care of it and keep it in the family. And so it's in her house that she still lives in right now. But I'm trying to think how long ago it would have been, because it would have been during World War II. Her brother was killed. He stepped on a landmine while in service.
Oh no.
And yeah, and she had so many brothers. I'm having a really hard time remembering his name right now, so I apologize.
No worries.
He was later brought home, what was there, and the casket was in their living room for not a long time, but at least maybe a week, until they were able to secure a place to bury him and to have a service to get the family there and everything. And my grandma said, like, every night his bedroom was downstairs in the cellar. So it was a small house, and she had like 5 brothers and a sister. So it was a big family living in like a 3-bedroom home. And so he made his bed in the cellar next to like all the canned or bottled foods. And every night while his casket was in the living room, something would turn on the light to the cellar stairs, and then it would be off in the morning. But every night at a certain time it would turn on, and she would have been, I don't know how old she would have been. She would have just probably been little, maybe 4 or 5. And she talked to her mom about it, because the first night it was like, no one's been downstairs. Like, did anyone go downstairs? No, but after he was able to be buried and taken out of the home, it never happened again. So my grandma believes that was his way of letting his mom know that he was okay, or that he was there, even though he had passed on.
That's awesome. And it's amazing. Yeah. Like, family does come back and visit, whether it's in dream. And when you have these dreams, it's not like a regular dream. Like, it's another realm, I think. And that's how they're able to communicate with us. The easiest way is in that realm, because it takes so much energy to communicate in this realm for them, I think, for the most part.
No. Yeah, I agree. I feel like they have to use a piece of you, really, to communicate, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So as a corrections officer, have you had any experiences, like, at work, paranormally?
I have. There are, sadly, with my career, I'm not allowed to talk about much until I retire.
Man.
But yeah, I write all of them down. Let's just put it that way. But as I can share one, I've shared this one other time. But so I have a different position now, so I don't work uh, the same times that I used to. But there was a period of time where we used to do our rotations were every 3 months. So you do 3 months of nights, and then 3 months of days, and 3 months of nights, 3 months of days. But there was an older gentleman that had been working there for like 40 years, and night shifts worked best for him, and I worked well with him. And so for like 6 months, they put me on night shifts, and just with this other guy. So I was always out second for the most part, which means I was the one walking around while everyone was asleep. So I'd go check on everyone. You make sure no one's like tried to commit suicide or beat up their cellmate, or you're constantly walking around and checking on all these people. And so on a different night, the guy I normally worked with was sick, and so someone else worked with me the second day. So the first day I still worked with him, and I walked around second, and then the next day I came in, I was out first. So that means like I helped with dinner. I made sure everyone had everything that they needed before they went to bed that night. And one of the guys, as I was coming around on one of my checks, because they weren't locked down, so he came over and talked to me. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "who were you training last night?" And I was like, "Training?" He's like, "Yeah, someone was walking around with you last night on all of your checks." He's like, "I couldn't sleep. It freaked me out."
Oh my gosh.
And I was the only one. I was the only one there. And
Yeah,
he
even
wasn't
though.
high. He wasn't, it's like he was not, what's the word I'm looking for? He was not disabled in any way by drugs, alcohol, mental illness. He was sober.
And it's funny that he thought you were training someone, and even though he thought that, he picked up on that paranormal energy. Like, it really freaked him out.
Mm-hmm.
Because generally,
Yeah,
training someone
especially when
wouldn't freak somebody out.
Yeah, well, especially when I told him, like, I wasn't, like, I was alone last night, and that's when you could just see his face just turn white. But
Did he say what he looked like? Did
that's
it look
probably,
like just a regular
yeah,
person? Did it look
said
like
he,
a guard?
yeah, said he looked just like one of us, utility belt and everything, looked just like one of us,
Wow.
walking around, but walking behind me. But
That's
that brings you
amazing.
to, like, but we've seen, like, there's so many investigations that are like that in a sense. Like you have to remember, like even where I work, the place was built in like 1983. It's still steel bars and doors. Like it's the jails you'd see on like 1970s like cop shows, with the big doors that you close and have big old keys. And but if you think about it, every single day around the same times of every hour of every day, there is someone walking around and checking on everyone. That's a consistent energy that has never left and that has never gone away. And most of the people would say that that's what they experience. They'll see someone walk past their room, and then they'll go to their window and there's no one outside.
Hmm.
But it's that consistent, in my opinion, it's that consistent energy that's been there for years and years and years, that's just been different people doing the same job every night,
Yeah, and it makes you wonder,
that has
like,
kind of
does
kept.
the spirit know that it has passed on, or, it just does its daily routine, whether it's checking cells or whatnot. And a lot of people talk about hearing footsteps or hearing, like, the keys on, like you said, the utility belt or whatnot jingling as they walk past, and different things like that. It's pretty intriguing. Makes you wonder, do they
Yeah,
know they're
like that's
dead, or
one.
do they just like their job that much?
Yeah, there's there's a lot to that one, but I plan on, I what I really want to do is, like, I've kept track of all these things, And after I retire, I really want to release them in a book that's just, change names, things like that, to protect people's privacy.
Mm-hmm.
But just so people can hear those stories, because it is just like that's not even like a crazy one.
Right?
You know what I mean?
You're like, there's
So
more,
it's
but I
like,
can't tell you right now. God, I wish you could.
yeah, I gotta wait till I'm 51 and I'm 32.
Oh man, we got a long time to wait. So why is it that they won't let you release this? Like they don't want people to know, they don't want to have that stigma?
I think it's the stigma, but it's also like there's certain things that are meant to be private. Like you can't describe locations, areas, because then you're just giving someone an escape plan if they wanted to go and check out your information and then go back there. But I think it's more policy than anything. We live in a very work and live in a very private world when it comes to stuff like that. So there's certain things that you just can't share.
So your group is called Central Utah Paranormal. What part of Utah are you guys in?
We're actually in Millard County, but we've gone all the way up to like northern Utah. I've been invited to southern Utah. I would say that we go really anywhere that someone does need help. It's kind of nice because we're right in the middle. That's why I kind of went with Central Utah Paranormal, and it's also an acronym for like all of the different things that we investigate. But it's easy to just be able to have to drive an hour north or an hour south and not live in southern Utah and have to drive 3 hours to Salt Lake.
Right. It feels like forever driving through Utah, I think. I don't know, because it's desert or whatnot. It's just like, I don't know, for me, so desolate. Yeah. I actually saw this salt plant last time I was in Utah, right outside of Salt Lake. The Morton Salt, I think it was.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's out there. You could just get out of your car and go grab a chunk.
Yeah, and you can see it. You can see it all, just like you'd think it was just clumps of shiny sand if you didn't know what it was.
It's amazing. It's like, how did that get there? And it kind of reminds me of when they said the earth flooded. And a lot of people don't believe that happened, but there's so much evidence that it did, especially the Salt Lake. Like, otherwise, where did this freaking lake come from? Was it not the ocean, that made it? It's pretty interesting, really.
And it started out as Lake Bonneville, which covered almost all of Utah and pieces of, I think, Nevada.
Yeah, the Bonneville Salt Flats.
You can still see, we have a lot of volcanoes where I live, and you can still see on the sides of them where the sea level was, because it's eroded everything down from there.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, let's go to our first musical break. On this break, for those of you listening, feel free to get out of your seat, go roam about the cabin. We have 15 minutes and 57 seconds for this break. On this break, we have Miss McKaylin Hay, and she's going to be singing Collapse, Nothing But Blood, Close, as well as, what is it, Devil You Know. And then we have Mr. Fred Johnson III with Sugar. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
You go, you're running away. I know that it ain't easy. I see you're losing your mind, you're pushing away. Yeah, it's a mistake. Yeah, it's a making me change. There's too much sky, too blue, too white. The birds on the wire are singing, but I don't know why. Why aren't the roses hanging their heads? They're standing straight up, blooming instead. Now that we're apart, there's nothing but blood in my heart. Why does that guy have a smile on his face? Why is the sun even shining today? Why are the headlines talking about love? Don't they all know what happened to us? Now that we're apart, there's nothing but blood in my heart. The moon goes up, the sun goes down, the stars light up, the world goes round. Every day, life moves on, it don't stop for anyone. The moon goes up, the sun goes down, the stars light up, the world goes round. Every day, life moves on, it don't stop for anyone. Now that we're apart, there's nothing. Now that we're apart, there's nothing but blood in my heart. Blood in my heart. Blood in my heart. Saw you for the first time in a while, in a while. You seemed so surprised. I worked out a smile, out a smile, out a smile. 'Cause I've grown and I've changed. Yeah, we went separate ways. How come we're both back here? 'Cause you pushed me away, let my life rearrange, but still we're both back here. Close to me, I want you close to me. I can see that you wanted me. Follow me, baby, just follow He's rushing towards fields painted greener. It doesn't see the demons behind, praying you're getting close to the line, so they can get their hands on love and trade it off for silver. The curtain's nice, but what it hides is worse than sticks and stones. Before you climb the fence tonight, look through the microscope. Better the devil you know. 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 Your nervous spine is crawling with shivers. You're standing right in the eye of a blizzard. You're inches from a shelter, so near to warmth of a home in a chandelier, shining down its light on love, wishing you'd be closer. The curtain's nice, but what it hides is worse than sticks and stones. Before you climb the fence tonight, look through the microscope. Better the devil you know. 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 Before you climb the fence tonight, look through the microscope. Better the devil you know. Better the devil you know. Better the devil you know. Better the devil you know.
Waiting here on this cold, lonely night without you. The tension's overbearing. Wondering, are you coming back home again? To inspire fondness with love. Where did our love go wrong? My sugar. Why did I make you cry? Whispers flow through my mind when I think about you. That warm feeling in me. My heart sings a sad song and just melts away. Please look into my eyes, my sugar. There's life in out there. Until the sun doesn't shine anymore, I'll be there. When time is a memory, I'll know this did our love go wrong, my sugar?
Welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we're joined by Mr. Ben Stephenson of Central Utah Paranormal. Welcome back, Ben, and thanks so much for hanging out with us and sharing your stories and experiences with us. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm having a great time.
So we were talking about COVID. Things have kind of eased up. But did you hear about the cruise that they did that was all people that have been vaccinated, and then, everybody was tested as they got on the boat, and then as they were out to sea or whatnot, I guess 2 people came up positive, and they actually shared a room together.
I have not heard that.
Yeah, I was like, okay, here we go again. I don't know. It kind of feels hopeless, but at the same time, I have faith that things are going to work out. But as far as paranormal investigation goes, for me it seems like there's been an upsweep in paranormal and UFO activity, and we've gotten lots of calls to come help people, but then there's the whole, COVID. We were in lockdown for a while, but still there's stipulations to run through. Can you tell our listeners what sort of difficulties and such you guys have faced during this pandemic?
Yeah, I'd say it was pretty much the same for us. We still had people that wanted help and needed help. I would say the ones that wanted it, like at that moment when we were still kind of in the pandemic, we followed all of our proper procedures. We wore masks. We, sanitized and took care of each other, made sure that we were all following the proper protocols, so no one would get mad at you if you're like, hey, keep your mask on, because we're also trying to do this professionally. We don't want to look unprofessional, even if it's a pandemic,
Yeah, and you have to take precautions and be professional and make sure, nobody's infecting anyone else.
Yeah. And we've had some that we're still waiting on. We had one soon-to-be client, it's still soon-to-be, that he actually ended up getting cancer during the COVID pandemic, and he's had some things happen in his home, but because of where his sickness is right now with cancer and the potential to get even more sick just from being around people, we all carry different stuff with us from going to different places, so we didn't want to put him in any harm. So we told him as soon as he's comfortable that we'll be the first ones there, but until then that he needed to get himself where he felt he needed to be at this time.
That's interesting. So did he have activity before the cancer, or did it start after he got it?
Actually, it had still lives with his family, and they've all experienced the same things. It's a Hispanic family. They all have had the same experience, including the mother and some of his younger siblings, but they see what looks like the apparition of I guess the best way to say it would be like a Mexican cowboy. I just can't think of the right word, like bandolero, or it's like a...
Bandito.
It's a sombrero. Is that it?
I think so, isn't it?
Bandito. That could be.
I don't know.
Like the ones that come to rob you.
Bandolero? Bandolero, is that what you said before? That sounds like it could be
that's
too.
What I said.
Because I think bandito is a
sure.
bandit. I think you're right.
Mm-hmm. But they said they could see this apparition, and you could see its leather gun belt. Well, one of my friends just messaged me and said gaucho. It's the right term.
Gaucho. Okay. Got it. I'll put that in my Palm Pilot.
But they said they could see it wasn't quite a sombrero, but not quite a cowboy hat.
Mm-hmm.
But it had a very, not a tall stature, but you could tell it was wearing like a poncho, and it had a weapon on its side. and it would walk towards you and then dissipate.
Wow.
I was like, that's kind of crazy and awesome all at the same time.
Right. So do you think that's a family member of theirs, or that's someone that used to be in that area, or?
I honestly think it's probably a family member that
That's what I was picking up on, too.
something, want to get a message across, especially where, their entire family, their entire culture is Catholic, Hispanic, came here, like, immigrated from Mexico. Like, I'm in my own thoughts, my own feelings. I think that it's a family member.
Very interesting. I wonder if he's stuck and he needs help or something.
Yeah. That's generally kind of what you run into. It's not always this nasty, oh no, it's another one of these. It's usually just like, hey, like, help me, I'm here, or I want you to know something about you, or I want you to know something that could bless our posterity or our family, or like maybe it's even just a message. Like, what if it's his mother's like great grandfather and he never told her that he loved her and he just wants her to know that? Like, it can be so many different things.
It'd be awesome if it was like a hidden treasure.
Yeah, or that. I'm
wouldn't that
still
be cool?
waiting for that one.
Right? I've heard stories about like people getting messages from, their dad or mom or whatever, the deed or the will or whatever is in this certain location, or there's money hidden in this location, and it's pretty intriguing what they try to pass on.
Especially back in those days when, like, you didn't trust the bank and you buried everything.
There was this one I was watching recently where this old woman had, I don't know if she won the lottery or something like that. She had tons of money. She only spent about 30,000 of it, so there was millions of it somewhere. Nobody knows where it went. And I guess she had a favorite pond, and they ended up finding a jar with money in it. So perhaps she threw all her stuff in the pond. I mean, there's so many different scenarios. It's pretty intriguing.
Yeah.
So you were telling us about the internment camp that you visited, and it's been crazy recently with the whole COVID pandemic and everything, how the Oriental folks are getting a lot of bad attention again. It's very sad, especially elderly people. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter who it is, but elderly people, come on.
Yeah,
I don't get it.
And it's not their fault, it's like you can't take all of these things out on a person just because of that,
Very sad. So, what was your guys' next investigation after the internment camp? Did you guys kind of go along the same path, or did you start getting personal cases?
So at that time, we actually, a lot of people have seen it on Ghost Adventures, but we went to Eureka I believe it's in Juad County in Utah.
Oh, wow.
But so what happened was I went there to go scope everything out. I had talked to the mayor and gotten permission from him to come around town and go to some of the homes and things. And he gave us a warning. He was like, just so you know, some of the past investigators that have come through here, Ghost Adventures included, did not treat a lot of people the way they should have. And like, there's a lot of people that are pretty sour towards investigators coming out here after that experience, which really, really pissed me off. It's like these people that are getting paid to come out and do this, to treat people so disrespectful, really bothered me.
Yeah.
But so we went out, and I shouldn't say I went out that day with our careers that we all have as like we're subject to call outs and people were sick, and so it turned out to be one of those days we were all ready to go, and then some had to go to work, and so it was just me that went and scoped out the place, kind of found things that I wanted to go through, and then I go to they had one gas station that sold had almost like a miniature KFC inside of it, like a mom and pop kind of stop, and got some food and was sitting in there, and I wore my I don't want to call it our uniform, but our shirts and stuff that have our team logos and everything on it, and no one wanted to talk to me at all. It didn't matter if I was kind, like I was respectful, I didn't try and bother anybody by any means. And so I go back out to my car, and I was like, man, maybe today is just, like, it's not the right time to do this here. So I passed, it was basically like a pioneer mining cemetery on my way in. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to go there for a little bit and then kind of come back into town and test the waters. So I go out to the cemetery, and I get a lot of activity, and it was really sad because you could tell where new people had been buried. They took care of that part of the cemetery, where those that were first buried there, I mean, there was damn near caskets coming out of the ground in a couple places. I was like, this is why this place is haunted. Like, none of you people care enough to take care of this. And,
yeah, could you put some dirt over that, or rebury this person? Jeez, oh Pete.
Yeah, like, I was like, are you serious? Like, there was some tipped over tombstones and stuff. I was like, that would make it good, like a scout project or something. Come out here, reset everything, re-cement everything, lower the vaults. Something to be like. You don't want to disrespect the dead, but you want to respect them, and they're already being disrespected by the way their grounds were being taken care of. But it was only on like a quarter of the cemetery. The rest of the cemetery looked just fine. Just this little, like, where it began in the late 1800s, early 1900s, which was very sad to me.
Yeah.
But that was where I got the communication and stuff, was around those areas. And I remember that the EVPs that we picked up were super, super airy. Like, a lot of the EVPs that you get, sometimes you can catch an accent, or sometimes they're really hard to understand. But these ones were like long, drawn out, like, yes, I did. And these like old, raspy voices. And it was like, it's giving me goosebumps right now.
Yeah, me too. Thanks a lot. Now I'm going to have to shave tomorrow.
You're welcome. So, anyways, I just remember going back to my car and just kind of sitting there for a minute, just kind of soaking that all in. Because like I said earlier on the show, like, you really do feel the emotions of these spirits and these energies. Mm-hmm. Like, you could feel the sadness that those people were feeling, that those spirits were feeling, knowing that their consecrated area was not being taken care of the way that it should be. And so I just kind of sat in my car there for a little bit and just, like, you try and regain your own composure, because like, things like that happen in the middle of investigations too. Like, that is a very real thing. When you start feeling the pain and the emotions of those spirits that have passed on.
Yeah, it can be very sad sometimes. But could you imagine if that was your grave? Like, seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully they fixed it.
I'd be showing up at my kid's house, like, as a ghost, with like a ghost weed eater, and like, go to my grave. You will mow the lawn.
No. Like, come on. Weed eat. Get rid of the weeds.
But then I got back to my car. Had been after I kind of composed myself, I got out and kind of walked around the cemetery again. And got back in the car to kind of start getting my other stuff ready. I had one of those portable charging units, so I can get my camera back up and ready. And I look around and realize I left all of my other stuff sitting on my couch at my house.
Oh no!
And so it kind of turned out to also be, I think it was supposed to happen that way, because I think I was supposed to go there. I was supposed to check out the cemetery because literally no one wanted me there in the town. Like, at least that was the vibe. Like, it wasn't like, welcome to our little town. It was like, what are you doing? Get out of here.
Get your ass out of here.
Because I had my paranormal shirt on.
Yeah, and Robert in the chat room said, fix my headstone or no Wi-Fi for a month.
Right. I'm going to shake your antenna for a month until you can clean my grave. Right. But, yeah, it was... So I really think it turned out to be that way. So I've still been trying to go back there. I talked to the mayor about doing a documentary about each individual building and having him or any people from the town that would like to give history or talk about them, just so we can maintain some history and some respect for the area, and then do an investigation that night and do that for like maybe one weekend a month for a few months until we could finish all of the buildings. But that's something I haven't been able to complete yet. And I really think I don't know, every time I've tried, it's almost like, we don't want you here. So I'm hoping that they'd see some of our stuff. Like, we have a lot of followers for a small area. We have a little over 2,000 followers. We have people from Eureka that follow us, at least on our Facebook. So they all saw our Eureka one because it had the most views on Facebook alone. It had a little over 10,000 views. Like, and I think they kind of soaked that in, almost like, we should go take care of our cemetery. So
really? I know. Act like that's your family or something. Like, have respect.
I'd like to go back just to the cemetery to see if that had any impact, but I haven't made it back over there.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, don't let them get you down, because you know you have a purpose and you're doing something really good, and they have trust issues because of Dildo Baggins and his crew or whatever happened. Don't let that get you down, because you'll prove in time that you're a better person and you're actually there to help. You're not there to take advantage of and disrespect not only the living but the dead as well. You're there to respect them and to take care of them. Hopefully they did something, like you said, like a Boy Scout project or something.
Yeah, that's kind of my hope for where that video led. But like I said, I haven't made it back out there. But we do still have full permission from the mayor to go and do that. He just kind of said, like, you know, you're welcome, proceed with caution. I know all the owners of the private buildings, and I can get you in touch with them. So it's not like we've been told no. The time just still doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. So when you go to cemeteries, have you had anything like really outlandish happen?
I think it honestly depends on the cemetery. Like, even if you go into more of a like a religious way of looking at the at burial grounds, the places that I've found are the worst, or the ones that you like. Yeah, you'll bring someone home with you. Kind of places are those that were not consecrated, or graves that weren't prayed over, just where people were just kind of just dropped off. In Utah, that would be the Magna Cemetery. It's on the top of a hill overlooking Magna and Salt Lake. But that place is very dark. I've had a lot of friends that have gone there, that have brought home what looks like young girls that are dressed in old-timey clothing that just kind of show up in their house and then dissipate. People, like, I had one friend went out there and just took pictures. He stood in the center and just turned his flash on and took pictures. And like straight out of like some creepy Hollywood movie, you see this half dissipated creature thing hanging over the front of the headstone, just kind of staring out at everyone. Like that place is bad. But as far as Utah goes, as far as I know, that is the only one that has had really bad juju.
Have you ever been able to go and investigate Skinwalker Ranch? That's in Utah, correct?
It is actually. It's only about maybe 70 miles. But during the time when we were considering it, it was when it was still owned by the feds or the private bureau that purchased it.
Yeah.
Now I believe it's a little bit more open. But we do have a lot of other things along that, like as far as cryptids, like as far as skinwalkers and Bigfoot sightings and things like that go, we have quite a bit of that just in our own area where I live right now.
Nice. What kind of stuff do you guys got going on as far as cryptids and such?
So there's stories about people that have seen, there's a really small town south of where I live called Kanosh, but there's a video actually on YouTube. If you type in, I think it's Kanosh Bigfoot, but people were out camping and giant boulders were thrown from where they were camping to another area, and that's what woke them up, and they saw something leaving the area, but nothing human would be able to pick that up without a machine and throw it, kind of a thing. There's always stories of paranormally, like skinwalker type of cryptid things. I have a lot of respect for the native culture. I have a lot of friends that are Paiute and Navajo, and those are areas like we've been warned since young ages not to dabble with, just because of that. And so I've always respected all of my friends. Some of them have told me some pretty crazy stories. I mean, I've had my own experience, which I don't mind sharing. I can't say that it was necessarily skinwalker related, but I do believe that it was a reoccurring energy from an event from one, if that makes sense.
Right.
But I do also have friends that have had the actual, the skinwalker experience, you could say, that have seen
I've had a
crazy
couple.
stuff.
They're pretty creepy. So could you tell us about yours? What happened?
Yeah, so mine, when I was 32 now, but when I was about 18 till I was 22, I worked for the Forest Service. And my job was to basically hop on a four-wheeler with 2 or 3 other guys, and we would spray noxious weeds that can kill wildlife if they eat them. And so we would go to different locations, different areas, and we have one area that is ironically called Dog Valley that people tend to try and stay away from for more reasons than for more than one reason alone. But I was pretty, not that I was skeptic, because I'd had experiences of my own up to that point, just nothing of that kind of nature. But we get to this area, and my boss, he'd been doing this for 30 years at least. He was in his 60s and still hadn't retired yet. And he was like, okay, this is where you're going to go. You're going to go up this road for about 2 miles. You're going to come to a little, one-room cabin is what it'll look like. And then there's a trail on the right side. I want you to take that trail and go spray these weeds in these areas. I was like, okay. But he was very specific. He's like, but you will be back here at 2, period. You'll be back here at 2. No later. I'm like, okay, no problem, And so I take off, and sure enough, after about 2 miles, I get to this cabin, and I thought it looked kind of cool. So I was like, oh, I have time, so I jumped off my bike and walked around this cabin. It was open, so I looked inside of it, and it was run down. It was like a deer hunting cabin, probably from the 40s, 30s, and it had like a broken, like a metal cot and like a place where a table once was. It was just kind of in pieces. And so anyways, I walked around this whole cabin, and then I get back on my bike. I was like, oh, that's cool. I see the trail just to the right of the cabin. I go up this trail, and the whole time I felt kind of eerie. When I got up there, I just kept kind of shirking it off, because you go alone anywhere in the woods, and you're miles away from anyone that can help you anyways, and you don't have cell service. You kind of feel a little creepy anyways, And so spray all the areas I'm supposed to spray, and I come back down the hill, except when I'm coming down the hill, the trail kind of moves kind of like switchbacks, but the whole time you can see the cabin like in your sight. And as I'm coming down, I look at the side of the cabin, and now it looks like it's covered in fresh blood.
Whoa.
The whole side of the cabin is just red, like dripping red, creepy, scary, gross. And I feel like horrible. I'm like, I've got to get out of here. Like, what is that, And so I haul ass when I get to the bottom of that hill. I go past the cabin, and I'm still looking at it, and there is a wet red substance on the side of that wall, and I'm not sticking around to find out what put it there. And so I take off, and I get to the bottom of the trail where our truck was, and my boss just comes over to me and starts screaming at me. He's like, I told you to be back here at 2 o'clock. We've been looking for you, and we couldn't find you. And I was like, what do you mean? It's only been like an hour. I left at like noon.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, it's like 1 o'clock. And he's like, it's 3:30. And where the hell have you been?
What the hell?
And so I'm telling him, I'm like, this is what happened. This is where I was. I did everything you told me to do, and I have not been gone that long. There's no way. And so he was like, unbelieving. So I was like, hey, come on. Like, let's go look at it. Like, I'll show you. I'll prove it to you. And so me and him and one of the other guys that was working there was curious. We drive back up to it. And sure enough, there's nothing there. Just the cabin. There's
no blood.
Nothing on the side. No blood. And so then, of course, I got my ass chewed all the way back to the truck. And I was like, ugh. But I've held on to that experience. Like, it still gives me chills every time I tell a story. And I've probably told it 50 to 100 times, and it still just makes me feel creepy every time I do.
Makes you wonder what happened there.
But that was mine. And that's why I think it was we run into a lot of residual energies or residual hauntings when we're investigating. And I really think it was just the time, the place, similar to stories where people say, like, this horrible thing happened, and every so often we'll hear people screaming, or we'll hear gun cannons, or we'll hear, like, smell smoke, or feel fire, feel the warmth from a fire that was there. Like, I really think something terrible happened there at that cabin, and I do believe that it was cryptid related. And like, I don't know, and maybe it's just because of that's the area that it was in, and the natives, depending on if you talk to a Navajo or a Paiute, they call it Yi Naoldalushi, which I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but it means he who walks on 4 legs.
Oh shit! So like a dog man?
Yeah, basically, but with the ability to, I don't even know if it's necessarily shape-shifting, because like I have another story that's kind of rebuttals that too. Like, I don't know, it's kind of crazy.
I think they can take the form of whatever life they took or whatnot, And I think some skinwalkers go into this with a dark sense, like they intentionally do it. You have to take a life of a family member in order to be a skinwalker. And I think some kids, when they're born and their mother dies, that counts as well. So they can naturally do it. They don't have to in an evil way take a life. So not all skinwalkers are bad. Some just like are practicing their religion or whatnot. But so I was born in Arkansas due to my mom passing away and such. We moved to Miami, Florida, then back to Arkansas. Then my aunt and uncle came and got me. We moved to Washington State, then to Colorado in the Four Corners area. So Cortez, Colorado. And I remember the first time I saw a sign that said Navajo, I was like, Uncle Bill, what's a Navajo? And he laughed and he was like, no, that's Navajo. And that name was actually given to them by the Utes, and Navajo means thief. Their actual term for their tribe is Dene. But I grew up with a bunch of Ute and Dene kids, and you hear different stories. Like on a temple trip, my friend told me about her experience with skinwalkers and such, and so, I always believed it was true. I believe anything's possible. The first time I ever saw what I believe were skinwalkers, I lived at the base, basically, of Sleeping Ute Mountain in Cortez, Colorado, and would go out on the back porch to smoke, and I'm sitting out there smoking, and all of a sudden I see glowing eyes coming towards me, and then more and more and more. It was like a whole pack. And they kept approaching slowly and getting closer and closer, and they would not go within the perimeter of the light. I don't know why, but I think they were just checking me out or something, but I'm like, forget this. So I went inside, and I never had another experience with that. But on the way to Phoenix, Arizona to see my mom and my sister, we have the kids in the car, and of course they're getting bored. We're in the middle of the desert, and we're like, telling them stories about skinwalkers and UFOs and keep your eyes open, we might see something. And shortly after that, there was this little red and white Chevy truck on the side of the road. Both the driver and passenger side doors were open, the interior lights are on, and there's nobody around the truck. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. And then about 50 yards up the road, we see this woman. She's tall, white, long blonde hair, and she looks like she's pregnant. And then the closer you get, you see that her belly doesn't look pregnant. Like, it looks like she ate someone. Her pants are unzipped, her pants are unbuttoned, her belly's just protruding, her shirt is up, and so her belly's sticking out. And her arms are so long that they go below the knees. So, this is not a person. This is something ugly. And I think I looked back at the kids as we approached her, like, are you seeing this? And my husband said she turned and looked at us, but I didn't see her face. I just saw everything else. But it was so creepy. Like, I don't know. Did it eat this person and take her form? And it's waiting for somebody to pull over because there's this poor pregnant lady on the side of the road. I mean, that was so freaking creepy. It really creeped me out, for sure.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
And then growing up in the LDS church, we used to always have the missionaries over and feed them dinner and stuff. And there was a couple that told us a story. They went up on Sleeping Ute Mountain, and they said that their van that they were in was attacked by skinwalkers, and they looked like wolves, but more of a human form. And they said that they were
That's
hitting.
the one we hear.
Yeah, they were hitting the side of the van, and there was not only knuckle imprints, but finger imprints where they dug their fingers into the side of the van. So yeah, they're like, we won't ever go up there again. And people are told, don't go up there. That's sacred. And they practice all kinds of different things up there, so don't go up there. It's sacred land, and they didn't believe it, and they went up there and were attacked. But luckily, they lived through it. Yeah. But yeah, that's insane.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Even in Dog Valley, it's you don't go at night. Period. You don't go at night. You just don't, because crazy stuff happens during the day. I can only imagine at night.
Right. Pretty interesting.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to think. I have a couple other stories, but I don't want to take up too much time telling these stories. But
right.
So I'll make these two fairly quick. But so around here, a lot of people still kind of live, not in like old ways, you could say, but there's a lot of people that still make jobs like cowboying around here, riding around on the mountains, taking care of cattle, and they get hired by farmers and ranchers. And one of my friends was doing that, and she was out with her dad, who had been doing it for years and years and years. And this is the middle of the day, and they're up near Dog Valley, moving some cattle across the land on the top of the mountain there. And her dad's like, hey, I'm going this way. I need you to go this way and see if any have broke off on the side, just to make sure we don't lose any down this cliff that's going to be coming up here. And she's like, okay. And goes over around the side, and she sees in the distance what looks like a lady. It's kind of in some tattered clothing. And so she being concerned, she was probably only 14 or 15, but wants to go see if this lady's okay. And so she rides her horse over there, and as she's riding, she's yelling, hey, are you okay? Like, is something wrong? What's going on? And it turned and looked at her and started chasing after her on all fours. And so she took off on her horse and caught back up to her dad and was like, holy crap, this thing. And he's like, okay, we need to leave. You leave now. And I believe they said like a prayer or something to that effect and left. Just, asked for protection, however you want to put it, and took off. But like that's, just one of those, like, it just makes my skin crawl thinking about that. Like, if that was me, what would I have done, kind of thing. But the second story, which is, I don't know if you've done a lot of hunting or if you have friends that go hunting. I grew up doing it because basically where I live, it's just kind of culture here, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I've been along, but I've never hunted anything. I've been along for the hunt and always been like, run, Bambi, run! But I've never killed anything.
So I had backstory, a lot of animals generally get down in the brush at night. They hide, they find not necessarily high ground, but places that are difficult to get into, like cedar bushes and oak brush, and so they can hide and protect themselves from predators. But a couple of my officer friends were out patrolling an area one night. They got a call to go in between this area, and this is at night over by Dog Valley. And even us at work, we're like, oh crap, because you don't want to go there. You just don't, especially at night. That's like the golden rule. And he said it was so weird. They're driving through the area, and all of the deer were on top of the hill, looking down at everything else. Like they were looking for something. They were not sleeping. They were not laying down. They were all on all fours and just kind of like looking, and all of them were like, it was almost like you could say like a patrol squad. Like they were just surrounded on the top of the hill, and each one was like looking down for whatever might come, and then they would probably warn everyone, and then they would take off. That's just what I think. But why else would they be doing that? Unless they were looking for something
like a predator
that could hurt them.
They always make a joke about deer on the side of the road. They always send out the dumb one. Go on, Charlie, you can do it. And then he gets hit by the car. So maybe they sent crazy Charlie out there. Go on, Charlie! And then they run the other direction.
Yeah. But seriously, though, it's like, blah, that. My partner joked once. He was like, yeah, we should go out there and check it out at night. I'm like, you didn't grow up here. No. That's a no.
It is so scary. Supernatural.
Those are just a couple of the stories.
Yeah, the girl, and I think she was Danae, and we were on a temple trip. We actually went to Provo, Utah, and I got baptized for my mom. And we were sitting there telling ghost stories and such, and she told me about one, and I think they went out to Arizona, and they were driving out to a family member's house, and they said they drove by this old, native lady, and she's just kind of limping along the side of the road. and then they see her again further up, and she's kind of dragging her foot this time. And then they see her again, and she's really, really dragging her foot, like it's really getting pretty crazy. And then all of a sudden, she's right there in front of their vehicle. So they punched it into reverse and didn't go there. But there's so many different crazy stories. The one you told me, I think I saw a video. Somebody went out there to Skinwalker Ranch, and they're filming the landscape, and you see a bunch of cows and houses and bushes and fields and whatever else, but they slow it down at this one point, and there is this long black-haired native-looking girl. You can't see her face, but just the tone of her hands and stuff. But she was wearing, like you said, a tattered, looked like a white nightgown, but it was kind of off-white because it was dingy. But it's like, what the hell is that? Mm-hmm. And it's broad daylight in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they'll that same description, they'll see walking along the freeway in between Cove Fort and Kanosh is where Dog Valley is on I-15, and they'll see that same just walking alongside the road, and they'll stop to pull over to check on this girl, and then she'll be gone. Like, yeah.
It's so interesting, and not a lot of Native people like to talk about these things because they think if you talk about it, you're giving it power. But there are some that will talk about it.
Yeah, there's some that believe it might be more of a pipe belief, but it's a belief that if you talk about them, they'll come and kill your family or come after your family.
Yeah, and it's also interesting. I heard this from my Navajo friends, Dene friends, and they were saying that even when people pass away, they don't talk about them because they're meant to rest, so you don't talk about them because you'll wake them up. Did you see that video of the little native boy, and he's playing with his mom's phone and filming himself, and his dead grandma is in the video? Her eyes are all sunken in and stuff.
Huh. No, I have not heard that one.
Yeah. It was pretty interesting. I think it was on, oh my gosh, Chills. I think it was one of his videos.
Oh, okay.
And he started to repeat himself, but yeah, he's got that on there a couple times.
I will have to look for that one because I follow him on YouTube.
There's so many amazing things.
Well, that's kind of where I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but so Central Utah Paranormal is also actually an acronym for cryptids, UFOs, and poltergeists.
Ooh, I did not know that.
So we focus on all three of those. I've just started, like, if people get on my page right now, just because we've been so far in between investigations and things like that, that I've started a lot of UFO research, and so a lot of our videos right now on there are UFO related. But we have everything right here. That's the crazy thing. I mean, you can ask almost anyone and they've had a UFO experience around here. Mine was crazy. I've only had one. And it's like, I don't know. It's just one of those things. It's hard to describe. They're hard to explain. And sometimes when you not necessarily tell the wrong person, but when you're trying to explain it to them, they're just looking at you like you're nuts the whole time.
Like, what the hell is this guy talking about?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I'm really, really into the UFO stuff right now.
I've seen several UFOs, and it all started in 2012, and I was pregnant with my son at that point. First time I saw one, we're driving back from the motorcycle rally in Ignacio, which is Ute Reservation, and I had to take the kids out because it was adult time, and that's when all the titties and all the crazy stuff come out. So I'm taking the kids home, and my daughter's like, Mom, there's a light in the sky following us, and I can't see. I'm driving my 72 Gran Torino. I can't look behind me because I'm driving. So I get to the stop sign, and I get out and look, and there's this ball of light in the sky, and it looks like an orangish red color. And then months later, after I had my son, funny thing, born with 6 fingers on his right hand. And the natives have said, like, they used to put their hand up, not to say how or hello or whatnot, but to see if that individual was human or alien, because they'd have extra fingers, I guess, if they were alien. So it kind of makes me wonder. But I'm holding my son. I just got done feeding him, and I'm looking out in the field. Dylan Redwine had gone missing at this point, so I'm thinking about him. His dad had taken him and his brother and hidden them before, so I'm like, I hope he's just hidden. His dad didn't do anything to him, and that he's safe and warm and comfortable wherever he is. And it's a full moon. There's snow in the horse pasture behind our house, and I'm just looking out the door, just thinking about this kid, and all of a sudden, here comes another UFO orb right down the fence line in a slow walking speed. It's about 3 or 4 feet in diameter, and it's about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. And so I put my son down, I run to the door, I'm trying to get my phone to the camera setting, but I can't because I'm just so anxious, like excited, trying to get this to work. So I call my family over, I'm like, you guys, you gotta see this. I opened the door, stepped 1 foot in the snow, and then I was like, I don't know what thing's intention is. If it's gonna hurt me, I have kids I have to raise. So I stepped back in the house, and me and my 2 daughters saw an orb. It looked like a globe with liquid fire flowing through it. Orange, red, and yellow. And my husband saw like a globe with a giant glowing bat in it flapping its wings at a slow rate of speed. So it didn't make sense at all. But maybe that's like some sort of shield they use. But I've also gotten pictures, unintentionally taking pictures of the sky at night because the moon is putting off this weird kind of bluish glow. But this last, I think it was the 26th of May, we saw, I don't want to say mothership because I think a mothership is too big to be in our atmosphere, but like a carrier or something come over the ridge. So I'll send you some pictures of that so you can check it out. But we have all kinds of activity in this area. I don't know if it's ley lines or what.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that kind of stuff though.
So have you guys caught evidence of UFOs or?
No, that's just that's one direction I'd like to go, just based off of my own experience. Like, I know that there's got to be something. I wish that it was more than right time, right place, but I feel like where we live, that's what it is. Like, for me, I was working for I got contracted to do a 2-week security operation for a film company that was out filming some, some nature stuff out here for 2 weeks in our desert. So basically, like, we have the largest land mass in Utah as far as a county with the smallest population. So we have the largest county, and there's probably only like 9,000 people that live here. But so the area that I was in, I was surrounded by 3 volcanoes, and I was with another guy that happens to be one of my friends that night. When we had first started, they put 2 of us together so we could kind of like be less creeped out, I guess you could say, 'cause you're out in the middle of the desert alone for 12 hours. But it was about 3 o'clock in the morning, maybe a little bit earlier than that, and I just remember my buddy was like, "Hey, you see this?" And we were sitting in his truck, and I was like, "No." And he's like, "You gotta get out and look at this." So we both get out of his truck, and like probably half a mile in front of us, and I don't even know how many feet, maybe 1,500 feet in the air, we see the typical circular disc, and it's just hovering. And it has colors that are pulsating from the bottom. And the part I have the hardest time remembering is exactly what the colors were, but I remember them being bright and kind of neon-y, like green, blue, and kind of like an orange. And all we remember is looking at it and like, this is insane. And the next thing we knew, we were both waking up in his truck.
Weird.
At 6 o'clock to the sound of our boss pulling up behind us. So here we are. It's like our second night at work. We have like 2 or 3 hours of lost time that neither of us can explain. Like, Men in Black just showed up and flashy thinged us, you know. But I've always wanted to just go set up camp there for a few days, kind of around the same time of year. It was like the second week of September in 2012, I believe was
Oh my gosh.
the date. But it was like what happened? Like, how did we get back in the truck? How did we go from standing physically, knowing what we were doing, looking at this thing, and then be put back in the truck? And I've talked to people about it. They're like, oh, you should go, like, be hypnotized and find out
Yeah, get a
what happened
regression.
during your lost time. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I don't think I want that.
Yeah, it might be traumatic.
Yeah, I'm
That's
like, no.
I'm good
But
on that.
he was the same way. I was like, what do you think? And he was like, hell no.
Ain't gonna do it.
But it's just kind of crazy that both of us like couldn't explain how or why. But
Yeah, and that's
That's
not the
why
first
we-
time you had missing time, huh? You were talking about the other time you had missing time too. It's interesting.
so it's
Mm-hmm.
it's like, what's the connection?
Well, on that note, I want to hear more, but we do have to go to our second musical break. On this break, we have Miss McKaylin Hay. You guys should definitely look her up on YouTube. She's got some music videos going on with this amazing music. This girl just graduated last year, so I think she's maybe 19 now. But she's going to be singing Gravity, Pins and Needles, and Mirror. And then we also have Mr. Fred Johnson III from Canyon County, California, with After Dark. You guys don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this musical break.
Signs leave behind for you to find. Hoping that you'll notice lights and purple skies were like satellites moving into focus. Into focus. Into focus. Silent, drifting all alone, killing time and counting stars, waiting for the moment we collide. I feel you pull me closer, you got me burning up, you got a hold on me. I feel you pull me closer, you got me burning up, your mind, my gravity. Shining in the dark, we chase the spark, search until we find it. We were worlds apart, now connecting hearts. They look up to find us. Look up to find us. Silent, drifting all alone, killing time and counting stars, waiting for the moment we collide. I feel you pull me closer, you got me burning up, you got a hold on me. I feel you pull me closer, you got me burning up, your mind, my gravity. Silent, drifting all alone, killing time and counting stars, waiting for the Talking on pins and needles, every word through a microscope. You keep stomping down on the ground while I've been stuck on this tightrope. I just wanna say what I wanna say without your sentence. I'm not willing to do the time when I'm innocent, and I'm innocent. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. Walked on my share of thin ice with your blowtorch at my feet. You won't ever see me beg, so take this tongue off your leash. I'm gonna say what I wanna say, don't need permission. Interpret it how you want, it's my decision. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. Dancing on shattered glass, kicking the pieces all around. My safety has been broken, this is now a hunting ground. Talking on pins and needles. Talking on pins and needles. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, hang it up, hang it up. And I'm done, and I'm done, and I'm done, done, done. I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking about, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking about, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, up, up. Talking about, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, I'm gonna hang it up, 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 up. I dove right in. Didn't bring a parachute, fell right through, hit the water hard. Moving too fast, spiraling out of control, was touch and go, went a little far. You taught me how to turn a blind eye. I showed you how to keep your shoulder cold. No one walked away without a scar, scar, scar. I've been digging through the pieces. Your heart is out of reach, but objects may seem nearer through this rippled mirror. I've been digging through the pieces. Your heart is out of reach, but objects may seem nearer through this rippled mirror. Try to erase the ink that's left upon my chest. I
I don't know why I can't control this urge to hurt again. Yeah. Living at the dark, I search lonely streets to find hidden shadows in the dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Change it till it's done. Murder forever after. No matter what I say. After dark. Really meant to hurt and feel. Hiding place with days of December. Concerning works or meshed in a madness. It doesn't matter what I say. It really doesn't. No matter what I say. After dark. It doesn't matter what I say. Secret homicides arranged in a series of pursuits. No matter what I say. Shade it in the sky. Murder forever after. It doesn't matter what I say. Rude and fatal, lacking the hint of conscience. No matter what I say. After dark.
Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight on We Are Paradox Media's Late Night in the Rockies. Tonight we have Mr. Ben Stephenson from Central Utah Paranormal. Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us tonight.
It's always good to be here.
Okay, so you said that you just moved into this house, so that brings up a question for me. Have you ever lived in a haunted house, or is this new house that you're living in haunted? Have you noticed anything yet?
I've had haunted apartments, and actually the home that we were living in before we purchased this home was I wouldn't say it was necessarily haunted, but after we had our little girl, things started to happen. Not bad things or scary things. I guess it was kind of scary at first because I'm also a paranormal investigator, so my wife's like, "You brought this home," and I'm like, No, I didn't. But like, she was in the kitchen one day, and I don't remember. She was maybe making dinner or something. I was at work, so I wasn't there. But I get a phone call, and it's my wife, and it's like, "What the hell did you bring into our house? Like, what is this?" I was like, "What happened?" And she was like, "So I'm in the kitchen, and our little girl goes and stands in the hallway, and she's pointing in the bathroom, and she can't talk then. She was probably like 12, 13 months old. And she's just pointing into the bathroom." And so my wife goes in there, and one of her, like, you know, the ball pen at like McDonald's, like where the kids could go play in all the plastic balls.
The ball pit.
So it was one of those kind of, it was one of those, and it was moving back and forth on the bathroom floor, like someone was putting it from one hand to the other hand, and she just kind of stood there, and they both just kind of watched it, and my little girl's still like, So I always wonder, like, where kids to me are so close to the veil, if she could see someone in there. And then the ball just went to the center of the floor and just started spinning by itself like a top.
Oh my goodness.
And then she was like, "Oh," and then it stopped, and that's when she called me. It's like, "This just happened, and I was too in shock to even think about opening my camera." Like,
yeah, what do you do?
You're like, "Why didn't you record it?" Like, the first thing in my mind is like, "Why didn't you record it?"
Where's the evidence? We need this. It's so crazy what kids see and report.
But it was just little things like that. Like her toys would go off. But it was only after we had her, which makes me think that there was probably a little child maybe that passed away in the home or just has been hovering there. And maybe it was because we had wanted a child for so long that it was there. Like, there's a lot of different reasons that I can think of.
What
but I
popped in my
don't have
head is perhaps she had a twin that dissipated like during the whole process, and that's attached to her.
That is actually, I have not considered that. That actually just
Yeah,
gave
that's
me
what popped in my
chills.
head. Yeah. I think it's her sibling. Ugh. Yeah, that's cool.
Super interesting because our little girl was in vitro, so there was more than one egg that was used while trying to have her.
Wow. That's super cool. Yeah, our kids have freaked us out several times. It was shortly after my husband and I got together, and we lived in this A-frame in Tween Lakes, and so that's between Lemon Lake and Viacita Lake, Tween Lakes. And my daughter insisted on having the lights out, having her door closed, and everyone being quiet. And we're like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? And she's like, well, Mommy E says it has to be quiet so Baby E can sleep. And we're like, Mommy E and Baby E? Like, what does that mean? She's like, that's the sound they make. E. And so we're just like, ugh. And she said Mommy E died to go with Baby E because Baby E climbed up a tree and fell out and died from that. So Mommy E died to go be with Baby E. And she said she looked like she was in the bathtub for too long. So perhaps she like drowned herself or something. She like had the raisin fingers and wet hair and stuff. So yeah, that was a thing. And there was actually a point where it sounded like Kinsey was trying to open the bedroom door, and we're like, Kinsey, go back to bed, you know, it's bedtime, you need to go to sleep. And it just kept wiggling, and all of a sudden it released and it kind of came open a little bit. So I jumped out of bed, ran over and swung the door open, and there was nobody there. So I ran down the stairs of the A-frame, and there she was on the couch sleeping, because we had moved her out of that room because that room was just freaky. And then there was a point too where she was attacked by this thing. So we're sitting there in the living room of the A-frame, and there's the stairs that go up like this, and the TV's right under it, and we're watching a movie. All of a sudden Kinsey goes cartwheeling through the air. So you know there's a great amount of force for her to be cartwheeling through the air, because there's just a small space and then there's the stairs. You know, the rooms are on each side. And she's cartwheeling through the air, and she does not hit anything till she hits the very bottom landing of the stairs. So immediately we take her to the hospital, get her checked out. She's okay, but she thought that I pushed or kicked her down the stairs, and I'm like, I was downstairs watching a movie. So I think it was Mommy E, but yeah, that was super creepy. I even almost jumped out of the window in my sleep at one point in this house. Luckily we lost it. Yeah. Yeah, luckily we lost it to foreclosure. My husband was very pissed off about that, but I think everything happens for a reason. Well, she did not remember any of these experiences, and then she quit school 4 credits short of graduating for her boyfriend, and they lived in Ignacio, which is the Ute Reservation, and they lived in a house that used to be a Catholic church. And everything was cool till they decided to go in the attic. They found these weird black bubbly rocks, a bunch of recorded cassettes, and then a satanic Bible and different things like that. But she said she ended up having a dream that she was in the bathtub, and then she saw this woman come through the door. Then she started choking and drowning her. And she said, Mom, it was Mommy E. How did she find me? Because this is about probably 30 miles away from this house. She's like, how did she find me, and after all these years? And so that really creeped me out. She hasn't seen her again, which is good, but holy shnikes.
Yeah, that's still...
So you're saying, okay, so you have this UFO and poltergeist sort of thing going on. Have you guys encountered any poltergeists during your investigations or in any homes you've lived in?
So I've had just stuff like throughout my life, but nothing in my own home of that nature since I've been married. But like, so I served a mission too. I didn't go out till I was like, most people are like 19, right when they go out, and I wasn't, kind of still am. I was a little rebel child. I was like, no. So I actually went out when I was 22 till I was 24.
Oh, wow.
So I felt more, I guess, mature at that time, because like the way that it worked, like when you first go out on your mission, you have a senior companion, and most of my senior companions were like 19 and I was 22 and had done more in my life than they had ever even considered doing in theirs. So I was like, but I had crazy stuff all the time on my mission, and I think that's really what really pushed me to do what I'm doing now. Like I remember one day, I'd been out for about a year, and I went to California, Sacramento, but I was always in the kind of the outskirt kind of little ghetto cities. I was in Del Paso Heights, North Highlands, Rancho Cordova, Stockton. But this lady comes running out of her house, and she was like, she's like, "You're the Jesus Boys, right?" We're like, "Sure."
Yeah.
Like,
that's us.
what's going on? And it was just nice to have someone run out of a house, not to just scream at me, just to scream at me. So
right.
She actually needed help, and I was like, yes. But she came over and was like, there's weird stuff happening in my house, and like my mom is acting off, like things just aren't right. And
how old was she?
I was like, okay.
Was she older?
She's probably in her 30s.
Okay.
But her mom was probably in her 60s. And anyways, I had this happen before, but this particular one had particular events that made it so, it sticks out. But we go inside, and her husband was there, and he was like, "Man, like, I don't know what you guys do, but we just saw you, and we felt like we needed to go get you right now." And they kind of told us, like, weird stuff happens, like, people are acting weird, there's this weird tension that hasn't been here, and is there, like, they were just expecting maybe, like, a prayer or, something to help them feel better, or maybe some scriptures. And I was like, well, we can bless your home. And they were like, really, what's that? I'm like, well, it's just, like, a blessing on your home that, like, will help you and your family, and like things like that. And he was like, okay. I was like, it also generally like evicts anything bad that's in here. It's like an eviction notice right at the end. They just leave. And he was like, okay, that sounds cool. So anyways, I told my companion, because I had done these before. I was like, hey, I'm going to do this. One of the weirdest things about giving blessings when there is something nasty in the home is it tries to like, suffocate you so you can't talk while you're giving the blessing.
Yes.
And which has broadened my testimony of like the good side and the bad side. Like you have to know that there's yin and yang. They're both are there, both are present. It just depends on kind of what you have there at that moment. But anyways, so I told my companion, I was like, I've done this before, like I'll do this and then you can do the next one. Ta-da! So we say the blessing, and right as I said amen, this pupil went to the house and through lines, and it split them in half as it exited their home. Just
oh wow.
Yeah, but that wasn't like the first time. I had that happen multiple times after that. Not that they broke the blinds, the only one I had that happen. That's why it sticks out to me. But you would always feel a force presence leave after you commanded it to leave in the name of Christ, which was always kind of awesome and cool and scary all at the same time. Like it's one of those experiences that I'm glad I had, but at the same time, you're like, I wouldn't wish that on anyone to have to go through that, especially a family that's had to deal with whatever it was that was in their home.
So have you guys noticed like an upsweep in activity? I don't know. For me, it seems like things are picking up.
Oh, yeah. for every realm, whether it's the paranormal, if it's UFOs, like both of them are on a skyrocket right now. We have people that still want us to come and do stuff in their home. There's still, I think, parts of them that are scared because of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what's going to happen. Maybe they don't want to find out what it is. But I would agree that there's definitely an uprise of all of those things right now.
Yeah, I've just kind of been going crazy. It's interesting at the same time,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it makes me wonder, is it because people being locked down, we've been know that for a while, but all the stress and contention and all the other things that built up during that time that could feed negative entities, is it because of that, or are we getting closer to something really big happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's hard to say because we can't go in direction anymore.
Is there anything in particular that we have not discussed tonight that you would like to talk about?
So I was kind of thinking through my old stations that we've been on, and I was wondering if you would like me to share these that we've gotten.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
For anyone that doesn't know. Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know what that means, that's electronic voice phenomena. There's a few other words for it too, but I'm going to see if you can hear this through my headphones. But this is actually a location that is undisclosed. We have worked privately there. They allow us to share our evidence. We just can't discuss where it came from. But in this particular room, I was with my other partner. Her name is Stephanie. And she picked it up, and I'll let it play once and see if you can hear it. And then the second time, I will tell you what it says. Okay. So I think you'll hear Stephanie talk here at the beginning, and then you will hear a different voice. Nope, she doesn't talk in this one. Did you hear that?
I heard a female voice.
Okay, so let me...
It sounded like call me... Something.
Okay,
Tommy, call me.
So after running through this with Audacity, taking out all the static, the background noise, it's a young male voice, and he's saying, "Help me." As she's going into this room. So you'll probably hear it this time.
Yeah, it sounded like at first to me, call me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that was what we were hearing. We were hearing that too. And until I took it out and slowed it down.
Yep. Help me. Yep.
That's crazy though.
It gives me chills.
So this other one is kind of an undisclosed location as well. But some background story. We were invited to go to this place. It's a business. The owner invited us there, not because it was bothering him. He said it's been there most of my life. He's like second or third generation rancher, and he said until it started bothering my grandkids, did it start bothering me.
Right.
And so he would hear it say his name. There was lots of different kinds of equipment. Like it would say like, hand me this or hand me that. And his kids would just jam out to music. They just turned it up, and so they didn't hear anything. But when he was there, he'd work in silence because he kind of thought it was, was like, not that it was bad, but kind of cool. And so he invited us there, and I'm actually with my partner, Randy, on this particular night. And he's on one side of this building, and I'm on the opposite. And that big building it probably fits on an acre of land, just the building itself. And so all of a sudden I hear this. If you've ever seen any of our videos, Randy is hilarious because he sounds like he's a 70s dude. So it's always like, hey, whoa, what is that you're doing? Yo, hold on, Randy, I'm going to talk to you. So you'll hear Randy's voice. This is recording, but he calls me over and he's like, "This is what I heard." And so I went over to him, and so you'll hear Randy at one point also say, "So this is a recording of the recording." So it's a video of the recorder. So you'll also hear some of Randy's. You still have chills, man. But after that, you'll hear a growl.
Ooh.
It's kind of like an angry old man.
He's like, whoa.
So let's see if we can get it in the right spot.
We'd like to communicate with anybody who'd like to. We'll come in peace.
So that's that. Go to do it again. Did you hear it? Okay. It's like more back. The owner kind of felt like he didn't want to be there. He just wanted us to do everything. He was even nice enough. He shut off. It was cold enough outside. Shut off all the generators to the building, so it was just dead silence in this place. The only sound you can even hear is just like the draft that was coming from the building. And so, anyways, we tried using dowsing rods to communicate, and they wouldn't work for me. It never happened before.
Weird.
The owner's brother-in-law was there. She was the one who contacted him that we come after he was her about someone to come and check it out. And so I was like, I haven't tried before. Feeling dry, maybe trying to use my rods and see if this will work. And they wouldn't work for her either. Into this, maybe 50 minutes to an hour after we had done that grunt sound. And all of a sudden, the owner walks in the back, and hello, like it's all dark in there. We're all just with flashlights, and he's like, "Can you hear me?" And we go over, and like, his eyes had this really overwhelming feeling that I need to come back here. And his business was ranch, so he wasn't probably a mile, And so he came and was like, "Overwhelming, like even that I had to be here." And Andy was like, "Whoa, dude, like." That I think I know what we should do. And I was like, well, what are your thoughts? And he's like, Ben, you go hold your down off man, and we'll have him ask the questions.
I love it.
I'm like, okay. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. And so we
Johnny Wickman
idea. And so the owner was like, okay. And anytime clients are actually there, I'm always like, okay, this can get kind of weird. You haven't experienced this. Like, if this gets too much at any time, like, say pineapple juice or whatever,
Pineapple.
Have a safety word or emotion. And so
right.
I told him to run his thumb back and forth, like against his throat, like if he wanted it to end. Because the way the
like a cut.
I could really only see his face.
Yeah, cut.
So,
let's cut it.
yeah. Like, nope, we're done. And so I go back and we take him to where Randy got that sound, and I hold my dowsing rods, and sure enough, like I always start the same way. This is in order for me to talk to you, I have to teach you how to use these. I'm going to need you to cross the rods for yes, and then you wait, and then they'll cross. And then I always say, okay, thank you. Like, leave them parallel for no. And at that point, they're usually already parallel, so they'll just kind of shake in place and say, okay, now we're ready for questions. And his first question was like, do I know you? And it said yes. And then, like, went back parallel. Like, what did he say? He said it's someone else's name. Like, Mom, is that you? And no. And then he just said, Dad? With like that, that
Dad?
inflection, like it was a question, Dad? And sure enough, it crossed. And that, like, it was instant emotion. Like, boom. Like, there was something that he knew that his dad wanted to tell him. And as we moved forward, it was like, are you with Mom? And it said yes. And then he said something like, are you aware of what I've been doing on the ranch? I said yes, and he's like, is that, like, basically asked, are you proud of me? Like, am I doing the right thing? Am I running your ranch the way you would have wanted it to be done? And I said yes, and there were some other questions asked, and at that point, it became very emotional. And the only time I've ever been in an investigation where So most of the time when people are on investigations, they describe it as like, ooh, it was cold, and oh, we could see our breath, and it was so scary. And but for this one, it like felt like you were standing around a fire. Like you felt like you were in the presence of someone that you loved, that you hadn't seen in years, and you were being able to see them, and everyone is crying. Like there's not a dry eye in this business. And so like, and then that was when he started running this. He was like, this is too much. Like this was great, but this is too much. And so we shut it down at that point. But he's been nothing but grateful, and really that was all it was. His haven't had any other things pop up. It was really just his dad wanting him to know that he was proud of him and that he was doing the right thing in the end, and that was able to give his father and that was able to give his father some closure, to tell his son that his father actually passed away from cancer, and his mother died in a four-wheeler accident on the ranch that he has his business. So it was like closure for all of them,
for sure.
But that
was
is
so important too.
That was one of the best investigations and like conclusions to one that I've ever experienced, for sure.
That is amazing. I'm so grateful for that. That's awesome. I'm so glad you guys experienced that, because like you said, a lot of things are kind of repetitive, so on and so forth, but this one was really extra special, and it really like helped Randy to move on, or to know that he is doing the right thing, because there's always that doubt in your mind. Am I doing what they want me to be doing? Am I doing this correctly? And for him to come and say that, I kind of feel like their relationship in life was, perhaps his father was raised a certain way where he didn't know how to show love, or that he was proud of him, and in the afterlife, you know, you get over those boundaries and you're able to say things that you generally wouldn't. So I'm so happy that he had. That's amazing. Oh, I'm trying not to cry. Yeah. That's so awesome.
Oh, it's okay. Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones to share. But it is one of those that was like, it was at a semi-disclosed location. He just doesn't want people showing up at his ranch or his business.
Right.
Like, running around with REMs and...
Whoa, dude, can I come check out your property? Whoa.
Like, he just doesn't want that, is all.
Right. For sure. Nobody wants that, really. So that's why it's important, like, when you're doing paranormal investigations, to have, like, a disclosure form and other things like that for people to fill out. That way they feel more protected. You're not just going to go out there willy-nilly and start spreading this stuff around. You'll keep it private and respect them and what's going on in their lives, because there is so much judgment and ridicule and people thinking, wow, don't mess with the Petersons over there. They're batshit crazy, you know? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how these things do kind of attach to one person and appear to one person, and this one person has activity when nobody else is. And it does tend to make somebody feel like they're going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like, I think that the most important thing for me too, like, have that disclosure so they understand what you're there for. And like what we do, we have paper that they can sign to authorize what they would like released and what they would not, or if any. Like, they can say, I want nothing, or like, this first 10 minutes was really cool, like maybe this could help someone else, go ahead and share this. So like, a lot of our videos, like, our investigations can be as short as like 2 hours sometimes, and as long as like a couple weekends. And usually, I mean, not always, we respect whomever it is that we're helping, the client, but we'll only be able to post maybe 18 minutes of that to further, you could say, the research, the investigation process for any professionals that want to look over it. You know, I always encourage, I have friends that do this professionally that actually like get paid to travel and do this to help people.
That'd be nice.
And so it's nice to be able to send it to them and be like, what are your thoughts on this? And to hear back from them is always really nice. So like, we don't just keep all this to ourselves. We try and share it with other people that actually have done this professionally for years and years and years, and not just where we are at, if that makes sense.
For sure. So, going back to my own personal experience, I've had people ridicule me because, my aunt, she used to be best friends with my mom before she passed away, and so I thought, I was excited to tell her, hey, guess what, I'm in the paranormal field now, and I'm helping people on this side and the other, so on and so forth, and she's like, what makes you think God's going to protect you when you're communing with demons? And I'm like, not every ghost on the other side is a demon. And I think she's Jehovah's Witness, so she has a certain belief. So I'm like, okay, I will no longer share this with you. But, I think it's so very important what we are doing, you and I, and our teams and such. How has the church reacted to what you're doing? Are they supportive of it? Do they have anything in particular to say about it?
So that's what I have really enjoyed showing, because around here, that's exactly what it is. Oh, don't call them the Ravens into your house. That's not what we're doing. But I've actually dealt with some stake presidents, if we're talking about like Mormon culture, some bishops, and they've all been very pleasantly surprised at the different. Think of how to explain that to understand, especially, but be able to understand that not everything around us is bad. That we can be surrounded by ancestors, by people that love us, that push us forward, that want us to do well, but that there's also some that might want not to use it.
Right.
But it was nice for them to be able to see that. So I actually have the people sell homes around here, people that contact them to not necessarily like real estate agents, but people that sell their houses. There's just a different word for it that I can't think of. I give them my business cards, because they'll have people that are just trying to, my house is just weird stuff happening here.
Yeah.
It's like, well, here, let's try and help you out with that. They actually had one guy, did have that happen to him. He wanted to sell his house. He was terrified of his house. He was seeing things would move. And they called one of the local bishops in the area just to come give a blessing on his home, and then it stopped and it's never come back. He was like, well, I don't want to sell my house anymore.
That's awesome.
But so we're in contact with them too. I've yet to be called to one, but we do have our information there so they can call us, especially when they find out we're a free service. They're more likely to call us so we can help them get some answers.
Yeah, that's super awesome, and I've never thought about that, going to realty services, because a lot of realtors, and there's certain laws in certain states, some people have to say there was a murder or suicide or whatever happened in this place, and some states will not mention it. That is awesome, and you could actually charge for that, but at the same time, like you said, we're doing this for free. If you want to give us a tip or whatever, that's cool. To help us keep going, because you can go broke doing this. Like all the equipment I've bought, I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on my business as far as the paranormal goes, and I've had one person donate. Otherwise, we sell cleansing kits and other things like that to raise money. Otherwise, it comes out of your own pocket, which, I don't hold any hard feelings about that, because I love doing this. This is a service to my fellow men.
Yep. And that's where I feel like if I was to have someone pay for me to come and help them, that it would be very in my own belief. It kind of
perverts it, right? It perverts it.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact scripture, but it always makes me think of this one scripture. It's in the New Testament, and how Jesus always spoke in parables. But he talks about this man approaches him and I did all these things in your name. I did all these things for you. I performed all these miracles. And Christ responds with, I never knew thee. And I've always thought of that as far as my business perspective. Like if I was to charge something to do something, especially if I need to give a blessing or ask God to do something for me, how damning is that of me to then be like, oh, now pay me money? Like,
Or sit there and brag about it.
Doesn't sit.
Kind of toot your own horn.
Yeah, that just doesn't sit well with me at all.
Yeah, and Jesus never asked for anything when he did healings and everything. He just did that of his own kindness. I don't know if you ever heard the story of when he was a kid, him and his friend were playing on top of the barn, and he pushed his friend fell and died, and I think that was his very first resurrection. He brought the kid back to life, and he's like, I didn't mean to hurt him. But, I mean, there's so many different things that you hear that are interesting. But I did go to seminary when I was in high school, and I asked questions that no other kids would ask because I had so many different experiences. Asked about ghosts and even aliens, and my seminary teacher told me aliens do indeed exist, and we're basically the last level before the new world comes about, you know what I mean? Before the next beginning, and they're just waiting on us and watching us, and I think they're trying to be our guides and support us or whatnot. But yeah, she's like, they're waiting on us, and we're the last round basically. So that's pretty intriguing. And I've talked to different psychics and stuff, and they're like, no, I don't think it's coming. But I don't know. Even 21 years ago, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was having these revelations, basically dreams, about the end of the world, and there's just been more and more and more and more things just accumulating to that point. And I'm not saying the end of the world, period, but the end of this world and a beginning of a new one.
A beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and even like if you stick scripturally, it says, no man shall know the time of my coming. So I feel like even though there are people that have those abilities, that not even they will be able to see that.
Yeah, it's going to be a surprise. But I don't know, I kind of hear the clock ticking. But yeah, there's so many different amazing things happening, and it kind of seems like the veil is thinning. It happened to me at least 2 years ago, and it was actually on Halloween. And I was in Arkansas visiting my sister. We had just gone to Louisiana, and I'm like, hey, let's do this thing on Halloween. And it was actually the morning of Halloween. And never before in my life, even accumulated, have I seen more ghosts than I did that day. And ever since then, it's just been like bam, bam, bam. UFOs, ghosts, all kinds of different things happening. And I'm just like, wow. This is very amazing and intriguing. I don't know if it's... Even this last month, we had a solar eclipse, a lunar eclipse, Mercury retrograde, so many different things happening, crazy solar flares. I don't know, kind of saying this stuff, I sound crazy to myself, but this stuff is actually really happening. It's pretty intriguing, really.
Yeah. No, I agree completely.
So we have about 9 minutes and 45 seconds. I wanted to share with you really quick. Okay, so generally when this whole pandemic thing isn't happening, we work different security jobs. And so it was a few years ago, I'm working a security job, and I'd call and say goodnight to my kidlings and ask them about their dreams, so on and so forth. And Lily's like, Mom, I had the weirdest dream last night. Okay, so in our backyard is the Mormon church parking lot and the Mormon church, and then right next to that, believe it or not, is a Baptist church. And she's like, right back here in the backyard, there was a UFO, and they came and grabbed my hand and walked me to the UFO, and me and Floyd walked into the UFO, and then the UFO started to raise up off the ground, and Floyd jumped out, so then I jumped out too. And she said, we started to run, and then Floyd tripped over a root coming out of the ground. And Floyd's like, I didn't trip, you tripped. And they argued back and forth. And that's when I realized this was not a dream. This was like a shared experience. And then Lily started laughing, and she's like, oh, do you remember when you jumped on that alien's head? And he started laughing too. And he's like, that was so funny. And I think they were trying to come and test him or whatever they're doing. It's very intriguing. So for me, okay, one question I had for you about your missing time and such. Did you guys have any marks or anything on you?
No, because I thought of that and I looked.
Okay.
I looked, but only did I look during my UFO one, which happened 4 years from my previous lost time one.
Wow.
I did not even consider it then. I just thought, rationally in my brain, I must have been up here, for that long, even though I knew I had been, but I wanted to convince myself that I had.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wish I would have had that intuition at that time to do that.
Yeah, it's so weird. I've had marks show up on me, which looks like 2 fingers on one side, 1 finger on the other. So like a 3-fingered, whatever it was. Or sometimes you get marks that are in a shape of a triangle. I have no recollection, except for seeing UFOs, of being abducted, but I'm not saying it couldn't have happened, but where did these marks come from? Like, it's pretty intriguing. Makes you wonder.
Yeah.
So some people say that they believe that God is an alien. What are your thoughts?
I don't think so. I mean, but I don't know, because also where I was raised in a very religious background, I guess that just doesn't ring well in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Goes against everything we believe.
But even if you go into, like if you talk kingdoms of glory, the second kingdom is called the terrestrial kingdom.
Yes.
So
Telestial, terrestrial, celestial. Man, there's so many different levels.
Yeah, and you have people talk about celestial being. Like, how do you know? Like, what is the difference? Like, I saw a terrestrial, I saw a celestial being. I'm like, oh, okay, I don't. But that's part of my brain that's like, I guess I don't know that. I don't. There's things that I feel I can say, like, I know this, I know that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's some things that are still left to the skeptical mind to be like, I can't say yes or no because I have no idea.
That's correct. Yeah, sometimes you have this gut instinct to know, or it could be the Holy Ghost speaking to you, whatever it is that's going on. You know beyond a shadow of a doubt that this is actually happening. But there are historical paintings where there are UFO battles going on in the background. Even Mary holding little baby Jesus. Yep. There's warfare going on in the skies. Like, how that be happening during this age? It's got to be aliens. So it's pretty intriguing. I think there's so many different races out there, and I think there's maybe one, or there could be a few particular ones that are trying to protect us, and then there's others that are trying to take us down because they don't want us to succeed.
Yep. Yin and yang.
Right. Okay, so we're down to the last 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Could you tell our listeners again where to find you, where to find your YouTube channel, etc.?
Yes. So, we tend to have a larger following on Facebook. I think it's just because it's easier for people to find. But it's central.utah.paranormal. On Facebook, you do need the dots because there's also a paranormal community that just shares like paranormal facts that has the exact same name that we found out about after we had already been established.
Wow.
But
we have one too. It's on the East Coast. It's so weird.
Ours is the one with the dots, and our symbol is, it looks like the wording reminds me of Goosebumps from R.L. Stine, with a little ghost on the side. And it's also central.utah.paranormal on Instagram. It's CU Paranormal on Twitter. And YouTube is Central Utah Paranormal, no dots, just spaces. And it has our updated logo on there, but it just says Central Utah Paranormal with it's like a sword on the left side. So it's we always appreciate any followers or subscribers that we get. We're trying to get more followers on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube in order to help us fund our future endeavors, just because we do this for free. And that way we would only be being paid through ads. So I feel much better about that than asking for a client to pay us money, because that's something that I will never do.
Definitely not. Yeah, and I've heard different stories too about like people that do charge for certain things and bad things happening, or people who have gifts losing their gifts. And I think our gifts are given to us by God, and for us to put it up on a shelf would be a sin. Like, we're meant to use these gifts that He's given, because I do believe that we are in a time where we really do need to help each other out. We need to raise each other up, and it is really kind of like hell on earth for a lot of people, and for us to stick together and get through this is very, very important. I'm so appreciative of you guys, and I thank you guys so much for doing what you do. And dude, tell Randy thank me.
I will totally tell him hello.
Totally today, man. But thank you for being on the show, sharing your experiences and things going on. It's been amazing, and I'm so grateful that you're here. And I hope that you and perhaps Randy Dude and some of the peeps can come along next time.
Yes.
And I want to thank everyone out there on We Are Paradox Media's Facebook, Spreaker, Twitter, Periscope, iHeartRadio, and wherever else you may be listening via the universe. I had a wonderful time tonight with Mr. Ben Stephenson, and I can't wait to do it again next weekend. We got Mr. Bill Hauser on a Saturday. Generally, we have Bill Hauser and his Ghost Box on Sundays, but this month, boys and girls, we're going to have him on a Saturday. It's going to be awesome, so make sure you tune in. Bring your headphones, because when you wear your headphones, you can hear things extra clear. And man, he gets so many things coming through that Ghost Box from all over the place. Don't forget, we are all in this together. Together, we can make the world a little better. And together, my friends, we are Paradox Media. Without you, there is no us. If you would like to join us on the Skype after party, look me up and send me a contact request at TessaTNT.Thomas30, or give us a jingle on your cellular phone at 1-970-335-9596. You guys, make sure you come in during the week and check out Mr. J, aka used to be Sleepy Dave Davenport. He does a really good job on basically talking about things going on in the world today, diecast racing, etc., etc. Thank you to our sponsors. We couldn't do it without you. We got Mr. Jim Morris, Mr. Kevin McDougall, Mr. Dale Elson, and Miss Mia Savage. You guys, until next time, nighty night.